When you start understanding that modern medical system is just designed to take away symptoms and not make you well, we see all of this chronic disease in pediatrics, compared to 30 years ago when there was about only 18% of kids were going to have a chronic disease in their life. Now we're looking at 40+% of kids are going to have chronic disease. Brought to you by the mainstream medical establishment in the food industry.
I always tell people when you're on this mission of detox and getting a health body, it's basically a marathon, it's not a sprint. And it takes a while, and you have to see how your body reacts and let it, you detox and you let it sit.
And my very first day of medical school, they teach us, over the next 4 years, you're going to learn 10,000 new words, and half of what you learn while you're in medical school will not be true by the time you finish medical school. But they don't remember that.
And then I went from basically laying on the floor vomiting. I used to have a bucket by my bed, and I would get up at 3 a.m. and vomit. That's how sick I was. Like, I thought I was dying. I thought I was and no doctor around here could tell me what the hell was going on.
Welcome to the Dr. Thornburg Wellness Podcast, where pediatrics meets functional medicine, blending science-backed insight, common sense, and a touch of shamanic wisdom from a father of 8. Going to Klinghart. Mm-hmm. Now, he practiced out in the northwest of the United States.
Yes, in Seattle.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, in Seattle.
Area.
And during COVID, he was a big player.
Yes.
With COVID and detoxification from COVID,
yes.
And identification of COVID and treatment of COVID. I know that's when I first learned about him, was during COVID. And then you mentioned his name after I learned about, and I was studying him during COVID about his protocols that he was using.
Yeah, he was, so I knew that Dr. Phillips was going to retire. I mean, he was 85, I don't know, and still practicing, but I knew it was coming to an end soon. So I tried to learn as much as I could. I even bought a lot of the stuff that he used, the light therapy and whatnot that I used on Bo. But I also knew that he didn't have everything. Like, there was a big element that he did, but I needed to go to the source, right? So where did he learn it from? Dr. Dietrich Klinghart. So guess what? I'm going to Washington. So I trucked, my kid over there, and I said, I need help. This is Bo. I told him everything, and it was an incredible experience. It took 2 days to do a full diagnostic on him. And meanwhile, I also did it on my whole family, because I'm like, if he's going to get well, then my whole family is going to get well, and learned a lot. And I still continue to see Dr. Dietrich Klinghart. And I recommend anybody that can and is not feeling good or have issues to go see him. He's incredible. I've learned a lot. He also does free webinars every week, which is amazing. He'll talk about different subjects and bring in different practitioners. Because, as moms, as parents, as dads, where do you go for resources? And some of it's very expensive. Like, how do you know what to do? So if you want to...
There's so much good information available on the web.
You have nice podcasts.
There's nowhere to go to find things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Klinghart's one. I mean, Seeking Health is another good one.
Yeah.
But there's a lot. We could do a whole podcast on where you can find information.
Where to go, yeah. But at that time, there wasn't. For me,
right.
There wasn't a lot of information, because this was a non-mainstream. And before, thankfully, within the recent years, things have, practitioners have been able to be more vocal about what their knowledge, rather than just their patients, but you could be more public about it. But back then, there was nobody who was allowed to speak out.
No, well, that was the COVID suppression of...
Yes.
Truthful information was being suppressed. You could take a video of Fauci stating that if you naturally acquired disease, there was no reason to give a vaccine, which has always been the logical, rational, medical opinion. But if you posted that during COVID, because now they were saying, even if you had COVID, you still needed to take the vaccine, which is contrary to everything we've ever been taught, and contrary to everything in immunology and functioning immunology. They would take that video down and label it as misinformation.
Oh, yeah. And you would get served papers, your medical license is on the line, or they would take it away.
And holistic, I remember there was a point, when was that? So maybe it was 2018, when a lot of holistic physicians were mysteriously being suicided.
Yes.
And I'm suicided because they were being killed.
Yeah.
And so a lot of physicians around the country were being killed. I remember receiving phone calls from friends like, you better stay low right now.
Yeah, it was scary. It was a scary time. So here I am as a mom, like, holy smokes, resources. Thankfully, I had the finances to go meet this man. And that began my journey of like the levels of healing. You know, you have certain levels of healing, and what are the root causes? That you'll go to some doctor and, oh, you have inflammation. Okay, well, what's the root cause? Why do I have inflammation? Like, what is it? You know, no one talks about Lyme. No one talks about EBV. No one talks about the herpes virus, the retroviruses, you know, and there's so many of them. No one talks about any of this stuff. And what COVID did, a theory I heard from a doctor, you know, is that, you know, COVID really activated a lot of these retroviruses and a lot of things in people. And that's why people are feeling worse.
And the spike protein stays in the body.
Yeah.
Whether you got the vaccine or you didn't get the vaccine.
For sure.
So one of the things you want to do is you want to go to LabCorp, not Quest, because Quest doesn't have as high of a ceiling. They cap the count on spike protein. So you want to go to LabCorp and draw a quantitative spike protein, because if you're over 1,000, that's going to explain some of your symptomatology about why you're not feeling well or why you might not be recovering. And then you can go to look at Dr. Peter McCullough has a whole protocol to help you clear your spike protein just using turmeric and ivermectin and mebendazole, and help clear that out, and then you'll feel much better. But you know, that's unfortunately you're not receiving that in the mainstream world.
You're not, and especially back then. But I think it's coming out a little bit more. But it was really, you know, it was a really interesting experience to learn about what's causing all these ailments and why, and what you need to do properly and safely. You know, how do you detox? Well, he was talking about, and I love him. He has such a great brain. You know, it's really neat to listen to him. And he was talking about the 4th phase of water and how the ionic foot bath is so helpful, and it's non-invasive. You put it, you know, a kid on there, and either I would read books a lot. 30 minutes of books, you know, to Bo, but it was fun, you know, and he would sit on the ionic foot bath. And I started that because Dr. Phillips mentioned the foot bath that Dr. Klingart liked. I started that at a year old, and since I started seeing Dr. Phillips and I started putting in Dr. Klingart's protocols, Bo never had another contracture again. And it was
detoxed him enough that
I detoxed
and you gave
him.
the mitochondria enough support.
Correct.
And you know, you opened up the detox pathway. The gut had been healed.
Yes.
And then now you could move in, because the first thing you have to do is you have to heal the gut.
Yeah.
Because that's how we absorb nutrients and how we, for the most part, most of our detoxification happens to the gut through our poop, and then we get some through the skin and some through the urine, but for the most part, and some through the breath. But most of it happens through elimination. And so you have to heal the gut first. And then so once you'd heal the gut, you were able to do these more, you know, non-mainstream, more esoteric approaches using wavelengths, using ions, basically using how the body functions. We're a battery.
Yeah.
We're a battery.
Yeah.
And so you can use ions and you can use wavelengths. Again, you know, if we can destroy a bridge with just wind, a cement bridge, obviously, you know, some light therapy, you know, you could take some methylene blue, put yourself in a red light sauna, and you're going to have amazing cellular detoxification, and then go get into a regular heat sauna and you'll detoxify.
Yeah,
Amazing. But you got to make sure that you're doing a lot of other things. You just can't go in there cold. You got to have great hydration. Again, you got to have that gut healed before you start doing this. Otherwise, you'll have that Herxheimer reaction, which makes you
need the binders.
feel absolutely binders, and that helps you poop it out because it grabs hold of it. Because we have our GI system's wonderful. It reabsorbs things, and if you don't take the binders, you're just going to pull it right back in.
Yeah,
so
it
you
circulates.
Have to recirculate.
All these things, you know, if you have parasites in you, when they die, they eliminate all this stuff. And you could get really sick. So you need a binder to help bind it to your gut, and then you poop it out. I love talking about poop. I swear, it's the funniest thing.
And that's where a lot of mainstream doctors will get confused, because somebody will go into an adventure of, well, let me take the ionic bath, and then all of a sudden there's a huge release of toxins. The person will feel sick, and then of course, what's the doctor going to do? That's not, you know, using common sense, rationality.
They don't have the knowledge or whatever.
We should not do that because look what happens.
Yeah.
So you get sick. Well, no, because the person wasn't prepared to do this.
Exactly. You have to be prepared. You have to. And the hydration's very important as well.
Good clean water. I mean, let's talk deuterium depleted water.
Yeah.
Another one.
Yeah, deuterium is a whole another element that I've came in love with. I still use in my protocols.
I take it every morning.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
5 parts per million.
Yeah.
Let's explain. So deuterium is an industrial waste. It basically, you know more about this than I do, and this is where I learned from you because I learned about deuterium from you. But essentially, industrial waste then causes the H2O molecule to have an extra ion, basically an extra hydrogen on
Exactly.
it, and then our mitochondria uses water as part of the cellular respiration, which allows us to make energy. It makes ATP. It's part of the mitochondrial of the Krebs cycle, and then when you, not the Krebs cycle, the electron transport chain. And so when you have deuterium water, now that extra hydrogen that's on the water, which is what we're getting most, if you're drinking most water, you're getting that, even if it's
in the food too. It's all in the food. Yeah.
Right. And even if you're getting good bottled water, you're still getting deuterium.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Deuterium water. And so then the electron transport chain isn't as effective. It's basically like sticking mud into a mechanical operation. So then the electrons can't move down. So we're not using the mitochondria. The mitochondria become very sluggish. And think of our body like a factory. If my furnace in my factory is operating subpar, then my factory can't work as well. And when we bring that analogy to the body, it means I can't detoxify as well. I'm not making as much energy. I'm feeling tired. Then the cells are accumulating more and more debris, and I'm not making enough energy or have the appropriate energy to detoxify the cells. And so everything just starts slowing down. And it's like rapid aging, cellularly.
And you can't get better.
No, and then so you take deuterium depleted water and you drink ounce or two.
And it tastes just like water.
It tastes just like water. It has no funny taste.
Yeah.
And you have to, you can't make it at home.
Correct.
And you buy it and you just take a couple ounces a day. And then the mitochondria has a preference for obviously healthy water. And so it'll start doing that and replacing out the deuterium water with deuterium depleted water. And then you're giving your mitochondria energy. Yep. You say this to a mainstream doctor and they're like, huh?
Yes,
you know what I love to do? Just once in a while when I'm like bored, and I haven't done this for years, so not making it sound like I still do this. But when I make my lectures, I get onto physician chat rooms, and I will, because I have to hone what I'm doing. I have to sharpen my edge, and so I'll put out a topic, and of course, doctors jump on the topic. Well, that doesn't make any sense. And one of the best ones was, what about leaky gut syndrome? And there's an issue with leaky gut syndrome, and they're like, that doesn't exist. And that's what I was taught in medical school. Leaky gut syndrome doesn't exist. And then I'll say, well, what about Alessio Fasano's work? He's chairman of pediatric gastroenterology at Harvard. He's been there for over 30 years. He's a huge researcher. He's still there. He runs the Celiac Institute at Tufts. He's at Harvard. And he discovered leaky gut syndrome. And there's a whole story about his attempt to create a cholera vaccine, and that's how we discovered leaky gut. He discovered zonulin, which is the enzyme that causes leaky gut syndrome. And I say, what about all that work? And all of a sudden, there's just crickets because they don't know what to do because they're stuck in their bias.
Yes.
And that's another toxin in our medical system is that people aren't willing to relearn. The medical doctors aren't willing to relearn what they have been taught at the time was science. And my very first day of medical school, they teach us, over the next 4 years, you're going to learn 10,000 new words. And half of what you learn while you're in medical school will not be true by the time you finish medical school. But they don't remember that. Yeah.
It's just put in their brain. But that deuterium depleted water is incredible because what I loved about it and what got me interested in it, besides Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, but I'm the type of person you're going to tell me something and now I want to research it, right? So I found out that the gerontologists who are responsible, looked at aging and the anti-aging, were looking at different communities around the world and figuring out what community is living the longest and why. Where there's a group of Siberians who lived way past their into their hundreds, but comfortably. And they're like, what is going on? Obviously, culture, this, that, there's a lot of different things, but they started looking at water and realized that the water they were drinking had only 128 parts per million deuterium water. So they call that deuterium depleted water. There's really no deuterium. It's good. This is excellent. And they just started realizing, wow, this might be a thing. And they tested our water, and nowadays it's increasing so much. I think it's like 150 parts per million now, or maybe even more in our water system, which is
it has to be more than that because when I'm drinking, I drink 5 parts per million, which is very, very the lowest you can buy. And
Yeah.
and if the Siberians were doing 125 parts, so then it had to be much more than
So it's
150.
maybe
way,
higher.
way more than that.
But
yeah.
I do know that it's increasing. I don't know the numbers, but it's increased
Right.
a ton.
I don't want
Yeah.
somebody to think, oh, I got 100. Yeah, I want to make sure that
Oh, yeah.
you guys are on the low end if you're going to buy it. And you can just buy it. Actually, Walmart sells cases of deuterium depleted
Oh, I didn't know
water.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really
Life
interesting.
water. And you can
Okay.
get 5, 10,
Yeah.
25.
So I take it, I give it to my family, and it's been great for us. It's an element that helps, and it helps your body to detox and do other things. It's so complex, all of this stuff. It's complex, and you just have to figure out the different elements that help your body detox and feel better. So this is one part that I use religiously.
Right.
I love deuterium depleted water.
So essentially what you've done is, in the mainstream medical world, we're just taught to relieve symptoms. We don't cure asthma. We decrease the amount of times that you're spent wheezing or coughing with albuterol or some kind of steroid. But we don't look upstream towards how are the mitochondria working? Because are they
Yes.
sluggish? Are you detoxifying? How well are you absorbing and digesting your food? How well are you eliminating? What's the communication pathways in your body? Are they working well? And are you sleeping? Are you nutrient deficient? Are you because what I love is that people will say, "Oh, supplements are bogus." Well, supplements are bogus. Okay, then why did the NHANES study, which is this ongoing multi-decade study done by the major medical institutions where they've been following people for 50 to 60 years, and the majority of people are deficient in essential vitamins and minerals per mainstream studies. So that just begs the fact that you need to take supplements. If the majority of Americans are deficient in mainstream research, but you don't hear physicians talking about take supplements because it doesn't work towards the equation of let's keep people sick. They don't know that they're participating in this whole scam of let's not teach doctors appropriately, so they're essentially drug pushers, and then that helps the pharmaceutical company who is funding the medical education to keep people sick so they can sell more drugs.
Yep.
And then that's working lock and step with the food industry who's adding more calories. They're adding more junky ingredients like seed oils.
Yeah.
And then we until recently we had the inappropriate food pyramid or my plate, which was pushing carbohydrates. And at no point in history have humans eaten that many carbs. Plus, we're not outside as much, so we're not getting as much vitamin D. And then I just heard yesterday that for a person who, and I don't remember all the details, but it had to talk about sun exposure, because you're not supposed to go out in the sun anymore. So basically, all of the guidelines are eat more carbohydrates, don't get natural sun exposure.
Yeah. Wear glasses so that your eyes are okay in the sun when you need the sunlight.
When you need the sunlight coming in.
Yeah.
And then they did a study, and I just listened to it, and it was a first pass, so I don't have all the details. But essentially, if you're outside in the sun and you're a non-smoker, your lifespan and your decrease in chronic diseases goes down by such a significant amount. And again, I don't remember the numbers, but it was a significant 25, 50%. If somebody's going out in the sun and smoke and is a smoker, then their life expectancy is significantly better than somebody who's not going out and is a smoker. I mean, it was a breakdown of common, how people live their life, smokers, non-smokers, and going out. And it was really amazing what a benefit having natural sunlight does for our body.
Well, sunlight is, there is your light therapy. Right?
Full spectrum.
You need it, your light therapy.
But let's let Bill Gates throw those chemicals up in the sky so we can reflect. So
that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, it's a whole nother. So, it's just, when you start understanding that modern medical system is just designed to take away symptoms and not make you well, we see all of this chronic disease in pediatrics, compared to 30 years ago when there was about only 18% of kids were going to have a chronic disease in their life. Now we're looking at 40+% of kids are going to have chronic disease, brought to you by the mainstream medical establishment and the food industry, but dare not say that you take supplements or look at light therapy or let's build up your mitochondria so it has better energy production, or look at biotransformation or absorption or digestion, or look at your gut health, or all of these things.
100%.
It's all designed to to keep you sick. It's
Yeah, and there is a time and place for medicine for
100%.
sure.
I'm not.
And U.S. is great for acute issues, injuries, or car accidents, heart attacks, whatever.
For acute, limited to acute
yeah,
issues.
for preventative,
Awful.
we need
Awful.
to step
I mean, we could even go into cholesterol.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be another one, another big lie about
yeah.
It's cholesterol. Just quickly, high cholesterol is only bad if you also include carbohydrates in your diet. If our ancestors historically ate a lot of proteins and a lot of fats with very little carbohydrates, because until we had shipping and refrigeration, you ate farm to table. We couldn't really preserve foods unless you pickled it, and then there was very little carbohydrates in our diet. The only time you really had significant number of carbohydrates was in the fall. No, I'm speaking about more northern latitudes than here in Florida. In the fall, because then we would have the harvest, on the grain harvest, the pumpkins, apples, all of these heavy carbohydrate fruits, and that's when you would get your carbohydrates. For the rest of the year, lettuces and some berries, some asparagus, some vegetables, which aren't high in carbohydrates. So we're not intended to eat this many carbohydrates. Yet the government, in their wisdom, with a pyramid, 6 to 8 servings of carbohydrates, or maybe not, was it 9 to 11 servings of carbohydrates a day was on the pyramid? No, and you should decrease fat, and so there was Olestra, and there was all this low-fat foods, and so they completely turned around what our biology is and physiology is intended to take, and no wonder we now seeing so many people sick, because then there's an epigenetic issue that happens on top of it. Because if I'm not living a lifestyle that's supporting me naturally, then that's going to alter how my genes are expressed. And then as a parent, if I have altered gene expression, well, that's going to affect how my children's genes are 100%. Then created by my, propagating the species. And so they're now like version 2 of a humanoid, and then their kids are version 3. So we're becoming less and less human just to make people rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to make it life easy, right?
Yeah, fast. Life easy too.
Yeah. And it's hard, as a mom, it's hard. Do I give packaged food sometimes? Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to judge, 100%. This and that. I mean, it happens. But,
I'm glad that you keep bringing it back to rather than just pontificating that, we're also human and we're going to enjoy, we're going to enjoy our life.
You have to have some kind of push and pull and know what to do here and pull back here. And you can't be like, I used to be so down on myself about everything. And I used to be so worried. I got rid of Wi-Fi completely in my house. I put, I have Ethernet everywhere. And, and I was nuts about all this stuff. And at one point, I'm like, I have to dial it down, my emotional part, So that also is part of the level of healing, is emotions and stuff like that. So not only can you just look at physical, issues, but you have to look at the emotional issues too. And mind you, when you detox, if the world doesn't know this, you do go through emotional detox as well. Yes. It happens.
I remember in medical school, we had to take a semester of alternative medicine, and each week we would have a different alternative modality come in. And I remember one of the professors saying everything happens energetically before it happens physically. And you're like, whoa, but that's what the Chinese medical system is.
Absolutely.
When Western physicians, we're looking at 1500s, 1600s, really started to have communications with the Chinese. The Western medical man was created, it's the guy with the muscles and he's standing like this. I think it was like in the 1500s. So that was the first time we kind of put a cartograph of what the Western medical person looks like. Muscles, and you could see the striations on the muscles, and it was all, you could see the individual muscles, and you're standing like this. And then they went to speak to the Chinese medical doctors. It was the first time they're having East-West dialogue. And the Chinese created their medical man in the 1300s. And it was, a Chinese person, there were no muscles on it. It was just meridians, just the lines, the pathways, all the meridians, because they see the body energetically. And so as they were sharing medical vocabulary between the two, the Western doctors were like, well, what do you call muscles? Like, what are muscles? The Chinese didn't even have a word for
Yeah,
muscles
I believe that.
because that was irrelevant. Other than locomotion, there was no point to the muscles. I mean, obviously now we understand muscles are very important for glycogen storage and, long-term health and stability and like
Right.
that. But at the time, we're looking at 1500s, 1600s, they didn't have a word for muscles. And, obviously when we looked at their medical manual, like what are energy pathways? There was no word that translated into our understanding as a Western mind of what energy is. And that's where I think osteopathy is a fantastic approach, because I think what osteopathy does with looking at myofascial tension is the energy expression in a Western perspective.
Yeah.
And that's, I've just found if you meditate a lot, you learn, I have tension patterns. Well, those tension patterns are following those meridians. In my belief.
100%. Yeah. It's interesting. The whole exploration of all this, there's just so much that I've learned, and the protocols I've tried, what worked, what didn't work, or this worked at this time, but it no longer works. So I'm going back to this, or I'm learning something new. Like, I'm always open to learning something new. And I think that's how people should be, doctors should be. And I'm so happy that you're that type of person where I can come and say, this is what I learned this month. What do you think about this?
Yeah.
Sounds crazy.
Yeah. And because there's a lot that we don't know. And you're so arrogant if you think that, our understanding of medicine today is the epitome of what medicine will be, because we look back at what they're doing in the 50s, it was barbaric.
Yeah.
So there's always an advancing understanding, and what we're starting to recognize is the body's quantum.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. I tell you right now, just recently in October, I started a relationship with Candace Bradstreet, and she is a sister-in-law of Dr. Bradstreet, who was helping a lot of autism, and he ended up getting shot.
Suicide.
Suicide.
He died of,
But she has been, it's my new...
secondary suicide.
Yeah. It's my new thing that I'm going through. I'm learning a lot about frequencies and frequency medicine, because I got to a point in the place where Bo's getting older and he wants to do more. He's becoming more normal, more normalized. He's losing a lot of his issues, which is amazing. And I'm so happy for him. So he's a kid, and I want him to be a kid and to take this supplement, take this, take that, this detox, this, that, blah, 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 blah. Oh, we have to do it on this time, that time, and it was like, again, I had this amazing angel or guide on me or something. And it basically like somehow connected me with her. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So yes, we still supplement him. Yes, I still give him probiotics. Yes, I still do certain things and the binders. But I learned a lot about frequency medicine through her. And she has this rifle machine, the GB4000, and I use the MOPA extension. So it allows me to amplify it within a 500 square foot radius. So typically lately I've been doing it while we're sleeping because it's just easier. But you can do it while you're eating, while you're watching TV, while you're doing your homework, or whatever. And it's phenomenal because there's all these frequencies that can match the frequency of the organism you want to destroy, basically, without hurting the healthy cells. And it has been life-changing for me recently, And it's been an incredible avenue. I'm learning a lot, frequency, if you can match the frequency with the organism you want to destroy and use a certain energy amplitude with it, it really is amazing.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So I've been using that along with the glycoprotein macrophage activating factor that Dr. Bradstreet used to use, which has been life-changing for me. And Bo, he's a little bit slower because he had more issues, but it's been incredible. I think I was extremely sick for the past 2 years, like extremely sick. And I couldn't figure out what was going on with me. I saw Dr. Klinger all the time, and he's helping me, but then I would get sick again. It was an awful experience. And come to find out, I had to help fix the cavitations in my mouth because I kept breathing the Lyme or the bacteria or whatever that's in your mouth, and it keeps going to your brain. And until I fixed that, my body wasn't going to heal. So that was the first one. You have to help and fix your dental foci first. Have to do that. Mm-hmm. A biological dentist is phenomenal, helping with that ozone therapy, stuff like that. Good cleaning with ozone. and if you have the resources or help to fix your cavitation, if that's your issue, so that was the first one. And then I had breast implants, which I had for a long time, 12 years, until recently I got them out, but I didn't realize how sick they were making me. And I kept getting worse and worse. And I'm like, Dr. Klinger, what is going on? He's like, honey, got to get them out. So I got on the doctor's list, 2-year waiting list, but I got them out. And I felt, within 48 hours, actually 24 hours, I think 95% of the symptoms went away of me vomiting and me sick and stuff like that. And everybody gets things and does things differently. My intention when I got them was not a good intention. My brother had committed suicide and I was in an awful place, and I used my looks as a distraction for pain rather than anything else, so I don't know if that emotional part had a lot to do with it as well. But after I got them out, I was like, I found Candace and I said, I'm sick. She says, try this, try it for 3 months. So I got the Rife machine, I got the GCMAF, I started my family on it, I started myself on it. Within 3 months, my hypothyroidism that I've had for 2-3 years that was on medicine for went away. I stopped using my medicine for a month. I have a doctor in Jupiter, Trignali Health, that has an incredible IV room. Love, love, love. So anyways, and great doctors.
Some famous people go there.
Yeah, so yes.
Yeah.
But, that's the type of person I am. I'm like, let me learn. So I went over there, and he's like, stop everything for a month and, just deal with it. Okay. So I stopped everything for a month, got my blood retested, and my thyroid is perfect. Like, no longer need the meds. Amazing, right?
Right.
And then I went from basically laying on the floor vomiting. I used to have a bucket by my bed, and I would get up at 3 a.m. and vomit. That's how sick I was. Like, I thought I was dying. I thought I was and no doctor around here could tell me what the hell was going on. I was like, oh my gosh. So anyways, that completely stopped. And guess what? I'm running now. I'm doing a 29-029 race in September, 3 marathons within 3 days up a 7,000-foot mountain incline. And
Wow.
I'm doing it. So I went from literally, I felt like I was in my deathbed to running this race. I mean, amazing, right?
Yeah. And it's been an accumulate. I don't want to say an accumulation. It has been the addition of all these healing
It's an addition.
modalities
Yes.
of all these different, to go from somebody who, typical NICU nurse, typical mom, typical married woman living in a typical town, doing typical things. And then there, whether it was COVID or it's just the progression towards autoimmune diseases, you started to feel the age, which most people go through. And unfortunately, the mainstream system is not designed to handle that other than symptom relief, not wellness. And then you have chipped away at it. There has to be a systematic way to it, because otherwise you can make yourself very sick.
Yes, it has to be done safely.
Yes.
For sure.
And so, so you have to dive in, just like learning how to be, to lay bricks. You just can't say, well, I'm going to learn how to be a bricklayer today and just go out and do it. You have to study under somebody.
And it's an onion.
It's an onion. It's always peeling back, and there's always something else.
And there's something else, and there's something, and then it goes back, and then it goes back.
Yeah.
But I always tell people, when you're on this mission of detox and getting a health body, it's basically a marathon. It's not a sprint, and it takes a while. And you have to see how your body reacts, and let it. You detox and you let it sit. You detox, you let it sit. Or sometimes I've done it. I plow, then let it sit. So it just depends, But I'm always under guidance, and I'm always, and I love like meeting physicians like yourself or Candace Bradstreet, and Dr. Klinger and Dr. Phillips at the time. You love to teach, and I love to learn, and it's like such a great relationship of that. And then I realized through all this, I had such emotional baggage from all this. And I had to do something with that, because I was never going to get well either. And I was so guilty of the vaccines. I mean, oh my God, was I so guilty. And then you
have to forgive yourself, because as a parent, we do the best that we can do with the information we're given at the time.
Yeah.
And it may not be that your kids, and it could happen in other areas besides, giving a baby vaccines.
Right.
It can be in how you were parenting.
Mm-hmm.
You learn to parent differently the more wisdom you get.
Absolutely.
And when you have kids, and this is one of the things I always say, when you have kids, you're going to re-experience your own childhood traumas. And that's what I call parenting traps, because you won't even recognize that you're abusing your child, whether physiologically, emotionally, physically, because it's so deeply ingrained in you, and you don't realize that you're reparenting yourself.
100%. So, and funny that you say that. Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt fully believes in this system called family constellation. So I went through that for like a week, and I did his family, and man, did I release a lot of stuff. I felt guilty for my brother's suicide. I felt like I should have been there more. I should have done this. Like, I was always the parent in my family, My family was very dysfunctional. So even at a young age, I was changing diapers at 6 years old because my mom couldn't do it. It was a lot. And so I went through a lot of like emotional detox through all this. And it surprises you sometimes. And then sometimes you're like, oh, I'm good. And you don't realize it. And then something happens and you're like, holy smokes, I just had one. So, I lost myself, as a lot of moms do. Like, I lost myself being a mom. I lost myself with the upsetness of seeing your child go through this. And I stayed up late and I did nothing for myself. It was all for, let's get this kid better. And now, thank God, and I thank God, and I think faith is a huge thing. I don't care about religion. I don't care about this, but it's my relationship with my higher power. And I literally try to connect every day. And I pray, please guide me, please put me around the people that can teach me. And I do that all the time. It's like a mantra that I have. So I just started I used to be a dancer, a professional dancer, a Ukrainian folk dancer, actually.
Ukrainian folk?
Yeah. And yeah. And I used to get hired in, my group, and I used to teach it, and I lost that sense of me. So I decided, I'm going to get back into it. And I saw this Instagram post about shuffle dancing. I'm like, that looks fun because it looks like cardio. It's a lot of hop, and it reminds me of folk dancing because it's a lot of jumping. And I'm like, oh, it's great for a lymphatic system too. See, there's my brain, Yeah. So, I went to this dance conference over the weekend, and here I'm thinking I'm like in this great emotional state. My life is going well for the most part in regards to a lot of aspects that weren't going well. And I was taught this one shuffle dance called the Melbourne Shuffle Rocking. And it's just basically you put on melodic music and you just kind of rock back and forth. And I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. So one morning I couldn't sleep because I'm on LA time now. And I decided, I'm just going to go to the pool area and just, rock and listen to, rock back and forth and do the moves and listen to this trance kind of music. And holy smokes, I had another emotional burst of detox, which was really crazy. And this whole time I grieved for my son. I grieved for my brother. I grieved for my childhood, basically, but I didn't really grieve for myself. I didn't grieve for myself. I never thought hey, I wanted a child so badly. I did rounds of IVF. I did this, and then look what happened. Or I lost myself during this process. And because I had to, and I would do it all over again if I could. If I had to lose myself, and 100% I would do it. Everything I did, but I didn't grieve for myself, and that's the whole other aspect. You have to be able to have that and to emotionally detox and just whatever way you can. For me, it was that weird instance. Who knew? But somehow I had this guardian angel who must have known I needed this at this time, and it was amazing. And I see Udo Fischer, who I think
he's been on
referred
the
me
podcast.
to. Yeah. Incredible man. If you're ever going through anything, I highly recommend you to go see him. I've been seeing him since Bo's vaccine injury that you referred to. I literally see him, I think, once a week, maybe more sometimes.
Shout out to Udo.
Yeah. But he's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I had this crazy experience. And it might seem weird to people, or you might not get it, but when you're in it, you get it. And wow, that was incredible.
Right.
Really?
No, there's definitely I mean, we're tied to our ancestors. There's generational trauma that passes through the family, and while we don't, it's not that grandma did something specific or great grandfather did something, but
Yeah.
there's a trauma lineage that goes through. And that's why you might find alcoholism in a family or abusive tendencies, verbal abusive tendencies in a family, just because that's the generational trauma. And there, unfortunately, in our three-dimensional materialistic world where we discount anything spiritual or we separate the spiritual from the physical and say that they're separate things, almost like we're Frankenstein's monster, where by just putting them together and putting two Lego pieces together, therefore we have a whole. It doesn't work like that.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't
It's
work
together.
like that. It has to function together, and that's the biggest
Absolutely.
failure of the medical system is that we
Yes.
separated the body from the spirit. And so you have to. That's where indigenous medicine sometimes comes in.
It's amazing. Like, I've been like I said, I've been running and I'm doing these long runs, and these long runs have been incredible for me because I can actually connect with nature and I connect with my higher power. And I ask for these things, or I talk, or please let me lead the way, and then things just start flowing. And then also with me feeling better, detoxing and doing all these different modalities, I can then connect better. In a weird way, it's almost as if they're doing it on purpose, like making you sick so you can't have the connection. I know it sounds weird. I know it does.
But there's a lot of and that's a whole nother rabbit hole. It's just like there's a lot of knowledge out there that's being suppressed to maintain power structures.
Yeah, but it's so uplifting.
Just look at, a very simple example is company policy. Like, you can't have a human experience right now because you can't return that because it's been over 30 days, even though it's unpackaged and you have the receipt. That's not a human. Who says that? The company? Why would that be? It's a human experience. If I had my own company and I was a solo proprietor, and somebody came in and they're 45 days late, oh yeah, sure, we'll return it. Yeah, it's not an old or outdated. No problem. We can return that because that's a human interaction. But then you could take that and put that into religion, or you could take it and put it into how the government's operating or how the medical establishment perceives how things should work. That's what I was saying earlier is that these governing bodies use regulations to keep power in place, as is to support the existing power structure. And I think we're seeing that right now with the U.S. and NATO, and that is Trump's trying to do is redefine the power structure outside of a globalist elite. I don't mean to get political, but it is what it is. And I don't know where you see on this, but he's dismantling an establishment that uses the old rules that support an existing power structure that's been in place for hundreds of years to create sovereign nations and individuals and return the individual to the highest power rather than us being behind an organization. And so, I don't agree with everything he does. I don't agree with the way everything he talks. But what he is doing at the heart of it is returning the sovereign individual, and that's reflected in a sovereign government, rather than having to be behind a NATO or some kind of globalist unit that's protecting whoever is unelected in charge of that group, which is only supporting people who have a lot of money. So you can just see everything is always repeated and repeated.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when you get into really deep healing, I went through a very difficult time, having 8 kids and getting divorced, and that took me years just to be able to ask for divorce, Udo's help, to get to that point. And then there was, that took years for me to get onto my feet. Very painful. I spent 3 years in the dark night of the soul, just sobbing every single day. And I finally did some indigenous medicine, and it changed me to my core.
Yeah.
In a way that nothing else could. And it healed me, brought me to my wife. And we had the most spectacular relationship. And when you find that level of healing, you're able to really know who you are.
100%.
I was
comes out.
I was a very insecure person growing up, and I was picked on a lot. Everybody's got their story, so I don't need to get into that.
Yeah.
But I wasn't the cool kid. I wasn't anything like that. And I was always insecure about everything. And fortunately, I've always been able to manage good friendships. But once I got to true healing, where it was an alignment of spirit, psychology, self lifestyle.
In your physical body.
I landed in me. I am so
Yeah.
confident in who I am.
Yes.
And the funny thing is when I encounter some people, even family members, siblings, they enjoyed the power relationship that existed. And now that I am a self-contained, fully integrated individual, they don't like it because they're like, why? That's not appropriate.
Yeah, you'll find your people.
Yeah,
As
you
I
find,
always say,
and
you'll find your
then
people.
and then the other people who want to keep you in that kind of power dynamic relationship, they'll try to beat you up so you'll return into that old way of
100%.
just being submissive.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't have time for that. I'm sorry.
Good for you. You have to have boundaries. And I always think that's also important, finding your people. And I'm not saying, hey, if you have a sibling or a friend, and you have different ways of viewpoint to drop them completely. No, I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is go and find your people so you also have that support system. Like I found it through you, I found it through Udo, and some of you have paid, some of you, but I don't care. Like it's just my people. MF Therapy, Mary Fallon's and her group, like Darla and Patsy,
Sarah Henry.
They've been a part of my life, but they're like my people, and I'll go in there and I'm like, oh, it's a rough day. Bo and I are both detoxing, or Bo's detoxing hard, and it's just really tough. And they're lighter and they know. And Mary sat down with me for like 2 hours one day and it's like, what do you know? And tell me what you know and how you do it or whatever, And then she would pass around my number to parents who needed that support or needed help. No, I'm not a doctor, so I can't like medically diagnose you or give you that, but I could tell you what I've been through, what I've done, what's helped and what's not. And I can also be a friend. I could, I've met a bunch of moms and she gave them my number and I just said, do you want to meet for coffee? Tell me your story. And I do this all on my volunteer time or whatever, and because it's a part of it. It's a part of helping other people. It's a part of connecting with people and, helping through it. And what they feel like. So you just find your people. You just find them.
Well, you speak a truth. And what I found is when you speak your truth, well, for the first thing is that when you finally fully integrate and you can share your story with somebody, it resonates like a gong. It's a mic drop and it rewrites history. It rewrites how you were guilty about not taking care of yourself and the sobbing that you were doing. Same thing I was doing in the dark. It's like I reconstituted myself because I was Humpty Dumpty that fell, broke open, and then I had to pull myself together, or I was just going to be in the abyss forever.
Yeah, you're going to be there forever.
Yeah.
And who wants that?
I had to pull myself together. And that's the sad part is, people like to stay in a fixed mind and they're like, I failed that test. I'm not gonna be able to do that. Well, that's just me for my life.
Because it's harder. It's hard to pull yourself together. It's hard to face things.
I was literally in hell for 3 years. I mean, I don't mean,
I believe it because I was there too.
Yeah, 3 years sobbing. And you have to own that space. And that's what people can't do. Yeah. They'll go numb themselves out in some way.
Yeah.
But you got to sit there in it and in it and in it. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, here I am. And then you can tell that, and obviously with 8 kids and going through a divorce and I don't want to disparage mom or anything like that, but it was a very difficult situation with that.
Yeah.
Very difficult. And I don't want to disparage the kid's mom, but it was a necessity that I left.
Yeah.
And it, when I was able to speak my healing to my kids, all of us just fell in line because it healed everybody down the line. And now we all have a very good relationship and, they've got to go through their stuff. But it created an opportunity for them to understand how they got to this point. So it was healing. So it was.
Well, I always say, and this is going to sound weird or maybe harsh, or I don't know how people are going to take it. But if you have a really sick child, like what my kid was, I had to look at myself and heal myself in order to heal him because in an esoteric way, it does affect him in a big way, big way. And now that I'm getting better, his journey and his ability to get better is vastly increased.
Yes. Yes. My adult children, same thing. You got to put your oxygen mask in the plane before you put on your kids. And now my kids, they're adults and they're going, they're doing things that result in some complex situations. But we're able to have a dialogue. And since I have been able to communicate my trauma and the generational trauma that got me here, they don't have to carry that baggage anymore.
Yes.
So they're able to move into a much faster healing space than I would have ever been able to do. And that's what my wife and I say all the time to my kids. We're like, you guys are so further advanced at your ages than we ever were. Just because we didn't
That's
have
beautiful.
our parents going through what, they hadn't done the healing.
Yeah. And you have to do the healing, and then parents are like, well, how do you do that? And that's, when I talk this whole time, that's my journey. I'm not telling every parent, oh, you should shuffle dance or you should do a crazy race. You have to do your own thing. But part of that is finding your people. And if Mary wasn't there in the very beginning, if you weren't there and if Udo wasn't there, I was a mess. I was a mess that you could mop up. I was a hot mess and I didn't know what was going on. And it was that energy and the love from people and the compassion and saying, and when I walked in and I come up with all these things that I bring to you, you don't tell me, hey, that's ridiculous, or hey, no, that's not the right thing. You foster that in me, and that's a big deal for me,
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, that's why you got to have people that you can sound things off of, because you got to make sure that you're not going wackadoo.
Yeah, you don't want to be wackadoo.
Yeah, you don't want to make, so you got to find people and say, is this making sense?
That's safe.
Yeah.
But also will encourage you, and tell you like it is, but in a, nice manner.
This has been a great talk.
Yeah.
This has been a good talk. So I think this is going to bring about a lot of awakenings for a lot of families and hopefully help them on their personal journey. And that's what,
I hope so. It's a journey, and for anybody experiencing what I went through, or maybe something worse or whatever,
even your own health, say
anything.
you have a chronic disease and you want to tackle that and start to look at it in a way because you just feel like taking hypothyroid medications is not working for you, or your lifestyle choices aren't working for you. It's the same thing. You just happen to come at it through a vaccine injured child.
Right.
There's one of two ways you get here. Either you were born into a family that already did the work, so they're able to shepherd you because of their role modeling and their work that they've already done, so they can move you forward. Or you have a very serious traumatic event happen in your life that you realize, I'm going to emotionally, not physically die. I'm going to emotionally be dead for the rest of my life if I don't tackle this somehow.
Yeah.
And then you go and find the work.
Yeah.
And it's the people who, stay lukewarm on it, that don't find it, or don't even acknowledge that there might be a way to truly integrate yourself. And they use some type of external experience, whatever that is, whatever the addiction is. And when I say addiction, I don't mean necessarily to drugs. It could be to shopping, to anger, to
anything.
overworking, to using
like cats. My friend has 8, 9 cats. I don't know.
Another one, yeah. Because they're just
keeps buying them.
Yeah. I mean, and we still do it. I mean, it's not like I don't have my activities that still aren't but
But it's health wise,
you'll plateau for a while, and then you're like, oh, now I see that. And I use Marshall Rosenberg a lot, who wrote Nonviolent Communication. I love the guy. I still listen to the lecture that first taught me. It was a 3-hour lecture on YouTube. Marshall Rosenberg did Nonviolent Communication, and he has this introductory course on nonviolent communication, and it's 3 hours long. And that helped me get to the point that I was able to leave that abusive marriage and reintegrate myself and help my children. And I still listen to that lecture, and that lecture is so good that it still teaches me, and I'm somebody that can teach that stuff, but he still teaches me. So, but I wasn't ready to hear the things until you're not ready to hear until you're ready to hear.
That's how this journey is too. Yeah. Like sometimes you're just not ready, or sometimes it's
too much.
You just put it
up for a while.
Like for me, it was too much at one point to give Bo all these things, all these, we call them pebbles. It's like our code word for supplements, or it was just too much. And somehow, through the grace of God, I found Candace, and I learned frequencies and frequency therapy, and I'm in love with it. But it came at a certain point. If it happened earlier, I don't know if I would have gravitated towards it.
No, because you had to get there. Because you can't go straight to frequency healing.
No,
you can't be like, well, I'm just a normal American doing my normal American things, and I'm gonna go right. No, you can't, because you had to get through you had to remove the amalgams first, and you had to heal the gut. Like I said, there has to be steps. It has to be stepwise.
Yeah.
There's certain things that have to happen,
and also mentally and emotionally. All of this takes a lot of bandwidth, right? So anyways,
Yeah.
it's my story.
That's awesome.
There's probably still more interweaved, but that's like a quick little summary.
Yeah, no, there's so
cliff
much more
notes.
we could keep going. Yeah, I mean, we could just take
That's like a cliff note version of everything. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, stay tuned and we'll go through, we'll get to part 50 soon. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, love it.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for being
Yeah,
here.
thank you. I appreciate it. It
right,
was
that
a
was
lot
awesome.
of fun.
All right,
Yeah,
bye.
thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Dr. Thornburg Wellness Podcast. Come for the science and common sense. Stay because it works.